Hello, everybody. Tonight we start a new show in this series. Tonight we have some special guests. We have Big Bill Graham. We have Andy Crawford, Miles Hale. Now these guys you know, but now we have a couple of new people. We have Robert Holloman and Tom Kovichik from Tom's Trains. And Tom's Trains and Things, pardon me. So far in this series, we've covered Is the Hobby Dying? Youth in the Hobby. And tonight we're doing Freelance versus Prototype. So, might be interesting, might create some heated discussions. We'll see how it goes. So, without further ado, let's move on to our guests. Okay, folks, we're back at it again. We're discussing Freelance versus Prototype. We've sort of come up with a consensus that we have guys that are doing freelance look at the prototypical guys as the rivet counters, and we all know what that means. And the rivet counters look at the freelancers as beginners. We're saying there's a sort of a happy medium and that everybody is probably part of each. So, Robert, what have you got to say about this? It worked better with a microphone
good comments. Yeah, I like that.
Thank you. After listening to the last episode, what dawned on me was there's so many facets of this hobby that you don't have to be prototypical in all of them or freelance in all of them. You can be freelance in one part and prototypical in the other, and you're going to have the best layout. The best layouts I've seen in magazines and videos on YouTube are the ones that actually, to Andy's point, hit that 50% mark where, 100% is totally prototypical and 0 is totally freelance. The best ones hit that 50% mark.
So a balance. That's the key.
Yeah.
You think the balance is
Hit the balance of both. Yeah, because honestly, as soon as you take in consider the selective compression, you can't really call your layout prototypical at that point because you basically cut out a big chunk of something somewhere.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, what are you? Are you?
I'm a modeler.
You're a modeler. I'm also a modeler, but I'm a freelance modeler. And I personally feel that a freelancer has to work harder at doing his modeling than the prototyper.
No doubt.
Because the prototyper is working to an exact whatever, and the freelancer is doing his best to make it look more real than, maybe that's the wrong words, but he's trying his damnedest to make it very presentable to being real.
And that's where I think the categories comes in, because my layout itself, the track work for my layout is completely freelance. This is the space I have to work with. How much can I put in there?
Mm-hmm.
It's got elements of what our friend calls a looper. It's got elements of operation too. It's a mix of both. I've got some old Tyco rolling stock that I'm sure we'll see the track, which we all know is really not that great anymore. But I've also got a Tier 4 Giro sitting up here.
It is if you weather it right.
But we can't all reach that level, Ralph.
Yeah, you can. With a few short steps you can, but that's not the topic.
But that's what I'm saying. There's so many facets of it that you don't have to be overall prototype or overall freelance. You can be freelance in one section and prototype in the other and have a great layout.
I think that we're all limited by space and the amount of what can I call it? Our expertise in whatever we do on there, because there's a lot of people that are very artistic and they could do just about anything on there. And there's people like me that, if I try to draw something out, it looks like a second grader's drawing. I can't
I have a hard
visualize
time with the
anything.
stick figures myself.
Yeah,
I feel that.
Yeah, okay. But we're all limited to what we can do. So what we may think is prototypical, somebody else might think it's freelance.
I think you're absolutely right. But I go back to the emotional component and the ego and the pride in it. Here we have Miles in our presence here, he just showed us before the camera rolled about his articulator of shutting off and turning on the sign that he's making. So and he's replicating something that's in the bottoms at Kansas City, and on his layout. So where would you draw the line? Would you say he's a prototypical modeler, or is he someone that's in between that?
Remember,
And-
Disney is my hero.
Right.
Okay?
But we're all striking a balance. We're all striking a balance. Nobody could. That's why I don't think it's accurate to say anybody's freelance, anybody's prototype. We're all striking a balance. Miles struck his balance, and how would you explain where that balance is then, Miles? Would you agree that it's a balance you found?
I think it goes back to what we said at the very end last time. You have to be happy. My happiness, 90% of it is in figuring something out. The other part of that is that I really like structures. Sometimes I like doing locomotives, which I'm doing now, but that's beside the point. That's just kind of a fluke. But I really like structures. So I really tried to make the structures that are in my railroad look like the ones in the bottoms. I even tried to make Western Auto as large as the real building. That's why it takes up 5 feet of space on my railroad and stands 3 feet tall. It is a true O-scale model of that, as are several others of the buildings. But I can't model all of them at that scale, or as somebody pointed out last time, I won't have any layout left. There'll be no space for the trains. But to me, figuring problems out and how to make things work, the revolving spinning thing here that turns the sign on and off was one of them. And I spent, Andy, you were here at convention in the summer, last summer?
Yep.
I remember now, almost a year, 10 months or so. And it's taken me 10 months to decide, how am I going to do this? But one night when I couldn't sleep and I got up and I was on the computer and having a good time, I said, this could be real easy, because all I need is a series of these little guys, and they need to have notches at certain places. So then it was making up a chart and figuring out how it was going to go, and et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden I've got a wheel that'll actually turn a bunch of micro switches and make it work. But to me, that's fun. Now, some people would say, I don't want any part of that. I look at Tom's video, and Tom, I really like what you do, but when you get off on Arduinos, I turn you off. Because you're electronic. And I'm a PE major. I tell everybody on my videos, I'm a PE major. I don't do electronics. And I don't. I try to figure things out mechanically, which is what I've done now. Tom would program the Arduino and do the same thing I'm doing here, and he'd probably do it in half the time. And he might do it with a lot more reliability. I don't know, It depends on how reliable my micro switches are. But, that makes Tom happy. Electronics is great. For me, mechanical and figuring out how to make it happen, go bang, boom, bump in the night is my thing. 20 years I had a special effects company down in San Antonio, and I did movies and TV and all that kind of stuff. And to me, I would sit in a board meeting and they'd say, how are you going to make this wheel stop on the dime? There's a wheel of chance. And so in 5 seconds, I had to figure out how I was going to build the wheel and how I was going to make it stop on exactly the same square that they wanted to every time. That, to me, is the challenge. And that's what I apply to the model railroading the same way. It's what makes it work. And that makes me happy.
Yeah.
When I get the problem solved, I get happy. In the meantime, I get kind of frustrated.
Well, the thing the little wheel that you showed, we've been using that in machinery for a long time. It goes back about 50 years. They used to use micro switches and everything like that. Cutting grooves in plastic and putting the plastic over top of it,
Yeah.
to drop the micro switches down. I mean, that's ingenious
this
right
exactly how they did the sign in the 1920s, the
Yeah.
real Western Auto sign.
there.
So all I did was just take the same thing and make it. I just happened to, it's kind of neat because I could do it on SketchUp and on the 3D printer, and
Yeah.
what an easy way to make
Well,
it happen.
see where you get stuck in electronics. That's what I would be able to like to do.
And that's, that goes back to what Ralph was saying earlier. You just need to put your fingers in the water, because there's some great videos out there from SketchUp about SketchUp.
Mhm.
And if you ever decide you want to do it, I'll send you some free key covers that are shortcuts. They're marvelous.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that draws a lot of attention to Ralph's point about that, is what you're inspired by or how you solve it as to the prototype, and about the ease of that. I think being a prototype modeler is in the vast majority of ways easier. You don't have to invent something that is what a railroad might do. You just do what they did. So for those of us who care a lot about operations, being prototype inspired at the very least is almost critical, unless you just know so tremendously much about how a range of different railroads done things. You have to invent that operation scheme. Well, all I've got to do is take the paperwork from the Norfolk and Western and replicate that exactly the same way as what you've done with your site. Is you took the prototype's inspiration for how to solve the problem. You didn't have to invent or create or think up some way. How did the prototype do it? You're just replicating it you're just scaling down the solution and replicating what the prototype did. That's why I still think, if you have to call me one or the other, you have to call me a prototyper, because I do aspire to that. I think it's unachievable, and I set my sights lower than trying to reach 100% fidelity.
Just don't call me names.
I don't know, Andy. I don't think I don't think you could really call yourself a freelancer, because you take everything to such a degree that it's not easier to be prototype oriented. Like, you would go through and hand lay all your track, right? You set your angles to such a degree that you're doing all this extra stuff. Whereas a freelancer, like the way I do my layout, I use Atlas Code 100 Flex. I am not hand laying that track.
Well, see, and I think a lot of freelance people, I think a lot of prototypers use FlexTrack as well. I'm not sure that exactly correlates. I think it may have to do with the attention to detail and how much you care about very closely photography and various other things. So if I was a fictitious railroad modeler, it's
the degree of being anal.
That's right. It's scale.
Oh, yeah.
It's exactly how much I care about.
It's scaled anality.
There you go.
Well,
I like
listen,
that. Nice word.
when you talk about being, prototypical, this model, South Brooklyn Railroad, is modeled after the Bush Terminal in the 70s. So when I get fellow retiree transit workers that come over to see this, the first thing they always say is, "Oh, this isn't the Bush Terminal," and I go, "Yeah, I know." No, they say, "This isn't the Bush Terminal." I said, "Why?" "Well, where's the smell of urine?"
I was going to ask you, where's the bar?
Well, not only that, where's the bar?
Bush?
Where are the half-naked women? Where are the prostitutes? And so, I mean, again, that's an extreme. I get that. That's an extreme. But, again, it's like how, we're doing something that relaxes us, and as I said previous, I've never met anybody who is disingenuous in their attitude towards me. If when I explained what I was doing to other fellow modelers, it was more encouraging. So I've never had that, if I did, I just left. I never engaged that person again, because it's not productive for me to do that. If this guy wants to show me he's the best of the best, fine. You've already established, that guy's established it. I can't do anything to change his mind, nor do I want to. So right. I think you got like, I'm in the same boat with Robert and Tom. I think it's, I'd love to do what Miles does, in that sense. But do I really want to devote that much time and energy to that? I want to do the things that I find enjoyment too. I want to do the things and come up with that I said, oh, that's what I wanted to achieve. And if anybody notices it, that's the double, that's the cherry on top of the sundae. And if it doesn't, that's fine too, because it's like, hey, I got my pastor's daughters that come over here. They're 7 and 10 years old. They ask, can I go in the layout? Can I go in the train room? I said, sure. What do they do in there? They turn the light off and they play laser tag underneath the light. They do. They play laser tag. They put the thing on, the laser tag thing, and they play laser tag. First time it happened, my pastor was like, Bill, that's a very expensive. I said, no, bro, it's wood and everything on there is plastic and shrubbery, and it can all be replaced and fixed. In fact, I'm even thinking about building another one. So they'll do me a favor if they knock it down. Again, it's the perspective. It's all relative, man. It's all relative. I got this, you got, it doesn't matter. Listen, I go in there if I'm having a hard day, and all of a sudden the answers to the world's problems come to me after I step out of that room. So I think it's about enjoyment. I think what makes you happy. I think what gives you peace and serenity in this crazy, crazy world we live in. More power, bro. More power. If you want to, hey, am I not? Can I not? If I want to learn what Miles is doing and take it to the 10th degree, I'll get on a plane at a JFK, fly to Kansas, and stay with Miles for a week or two, check into a hotel, and come and hang out with Miles, and he'll teach me the Western side, and I'll go home with all this information, and I'll either attempt it or I just had a great 2 weeks with Miles, eating barbecue and hanging out with him and friends.
Welcome anytime.
There you go.
There's so many different aspects of model railroading that you have to learn, but you have to focus on what you're comfortable learning. You focus on one thing and you go ahead and do that and be good at it. And you can't be good at everything in model railroading. Some people try to do, but you could only do so much. You could only read so much material about stuff. There's not that much time that you could get involved with every aspect of it. You have to concentrate on, what feels best for you, what you could do better than, because I can't paint, at all. And so I just stay away from that. But I do what I feel comfortable doing.
This is something that you have to realize. Never, when all of us, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when that day comes that we pass away. Never have I ever seen a model railroader in a hearse with a U-Haul attached to the back of it. Taking his way out to the cemetery. And no one's going to stand over your coffin and go, this guy, Bill, this guy knew what to do with LEDs. You know how to work an LED. That's not going to happen. So, again, it's what we get out of it is what we truly, truly enjoy. And
if you guys
are looking to get into this, get into it. Jump in 2 feet. Jump into the deep end.
If you guys have ever been to the show where Fast Tracks has been there with Tim Warris, he has a model of, what do they call it, the Bronx Terminal.
Yeah,
Yes.
I have never seen such attention to detail in my life. He's one of the reasons that I got into modeling because of what he did with the track work. It was absolutely amazing. Now, not everybody has the skill to do it, and that's fine. We all, as a model railroader, you have more than one skill, and we use it to build our layout. So I think one of the main questions that comes up is, to what degree are you a freelancer or a prototypical modeler? Other than that, I think we pretty well hit the nail on the head here, guys. And we bent it because nobody's correct. Nobody's wrong.
That makes nobody's right either.
Hi, this is Big Bill. First and foremost, we want to thank you for tuning in to watching Model Railroad Views. I hope it was as exciting for you and that you got something out of it as much as we did in putting into this. We put a lot of work into it. And we hope that it has sparked an interest with you and your fellow modelers when you're around the train table. I hope it enlightens the discussion with you. We will be doing more of these types of series. And if you have any ideas for further discussion, please feel free to drop it in the comments below, right below there. Just drop a comment and let us know what you'd like us to cover. We hope to do this in the near future. And we've had a pleasure doing it, and we hope you've enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed making them. So once again, thank you very much for tuning in. You take care. God bless, and most definitely we will see you on the radio.